guys, it's Elise. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new.
Hey, it's me.
And as you can tell from today's title, today I'm going to do all my book recommendations. There are a few more on my bookshelf that I keep seeing and I'm like, I want to pull them off. But you're currently leaning on it and that's not okay. I'm not going to pull off more books because I really don't need to. Someone messaged me the other day and they were like, can I have some book recommendations? And so here we are. Starting off, we have Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which follows this band, Daisy Jones and the Six, in I think the 80s or something, 70s, like late 70s. And yeah, it's like written in interview style, so you basically are in the interview kind of process. Like it's actually set up kind of like a script, which is, I didn't like it at first when I started reading it, but then once I got into it I really enjoyed it. And also I think watching the show at the same time as reading the book helped a little bit because you got to see visuals as well as reading the story. I would recommend this book. I gave it 4 stars. This one is a bit like controversial. Anyway, a lot of people are talking bad about it because the movie is a bit bad, like by the looks of it. No one likes the casting of this movie. No one likes the costuming of this movie. And if you haven't guessed by now, it ends with us and it starts with us. I also gave 5 stars. So I gave them both 5 stars when I read them. But I read these back in November and I've read a bit more books. So these were the first 2 books I ever read. And I've read more since then. So, you know, I might not like them now if I reread them. But yeah, I would recommend these ones as like kind of a starter. But like obviously search up trigger warnings. I went into this not realising that there was this one plot line, but I think everyone kind of knows it now because of the movie. Next we have One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is also the last book I just finished. So but this one follows what's her name? This one, oh my god, I just finished this book, what am I talking about? This one follows Emma, who is a kind of like a travel blogger, I think, travel writer, I don't know, and she's married to this guy Jesse, who is like a photographer. I don't know, he also traveled, like they basically both travel all the time for their jobs and stuff, and that, but you know, whatever. But they're high school sweethearts, and one day you figure this out at the beginning of the book, like it even says it on the back, so you know. But one day Jesse goes on this like trip to go do a photo shoot or something in Alaska, and he gets in a helicopter accident and everyone presumes he's dead. Emma falls in love with this other guy, Sam, who is also her like high school friend or something, best friend, I don't know. And so they fall in love, and then I think 3 years after Jesse disappears and dies, he calls Emma and says, I'm actually alive, they found me. And then you see her discovering who she like really wants to be with. I gave this one 4 stars because I found the beginning, actually no, I loved the beginning. The middle kind of was a bit slow, and then I loved the ending. Like the ending, I didn't expect it, like I was actually expecting it to go the complete other way. But then also I'm like that kind of romantic, so you know, if you have read the book you'll understand, I think. I don't know, but I expected her to be with the other person by the end of this book, but I'm actually happy she ended up with this other person. So then we have the Mortal Instruments series. I've only read City of Bones and City of Ashes at the moment. I'm currently still reading this series, but I love this. I think I've said this in so many videos, if you like rewatch a bunch of videos where I talk about these books, I loved the show, somewhat liked the movies, or the movie of the movie that is based off of City of Bones. I liked the movie. I loved the show of the Mortal Instruments series, and so I'm reading these books to like get more of it because I haven't been able to get new content in a while, and now I'm reading, so you know. But I loved these. I rated City of Bones 4 stars because it was kind of the plot of the show, so I was kind of bored of it, like I kind of knew how the plot was gonna go. And I loved City of Ashes. I gave it 5 stars. Then I also have the Twisted series. I loved Twisted Games. This was a 5-star read. Twisted Love was like a 3-star, but you kind of have to read this before you read Twisted Games if you're going to read the whole series, you know. Like if you want to read Twisted Love, you have to read it before you read Twisted Games. But you can also read Twisted Games on its own. Like, you don't have to read the whole series together. But Twisted Games has spoilers for Twisted Love. So, you know, like, if you read... You can technically read them as standalones. But, like, if you do read Twisted Games, you will spoil yourself for Twisted Love. Because there's, like, 2 parts of Twisted Games. And one part is at the timeline of Twisted Love. And then the other part is, like, a new timeline. So... you can read them as standalones. But Twisted Love follows Ava and Alex. Alex is Ava's best friend, Ava's brother's best friend, and then they become neighbours because Ava's brother goes somewhere. He goes on a trip somewhere for like a year or something, and he basically assigns Alex to like babysit Ava, and then, you know, all of this, like, it basically is... no, it's kind of enemies to lovers because they hate each other, but, like, not too much because there's literally a book in this series called Twisted Hate. But, like, they don't like each other at the beginning, and then they fall in love because that's what every book in romance does. But, yeah, I didn't like this one because I found it so slow, and considering it's, like, a thin book, it shouldn't have gone that slow. But I loved Reese and Bridget, and basically Twisted Games is... Bridget, who was a princess of this fictional country called Eldora, and Reese is her bodyguard. And basically, obviously, they fall in love. There's a bunch of plot twists, and you, like, find these all out near the end of the book, and I was, like, jaw on the ground at the end of the book. I hate when people say, like, you have to read this book to get to this book, but this book's better than this book. But, like, it literally is how the series is so far. Like, I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it, I just didn't like it, and I loved this book. Then we have Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, which was my first, I think, 5-star book of this year, and I loved every second of it. Basically, it follows Bree and Archer. Bree moves to this town, Pellion in Maine. I don't actually know if that's fictional or not because I'm not from America. Well, I'm not from the US, I should specify that. Anyway, basically she moves to this town because this thing happens in her hometown or whatever, and she wants to escape it and have a fresh start. So she moves to this town, and she meets this guy Archer, who is a mute because of something that happened in his childhood. He doesn't speak, so she speaks to him in sign language, even though he can hear, but, you know, they speak in sign language because Bree's dad was deaf, so she knew how to do sign language, and that was so Archer could speak to Bree through sign language, and that's how they communicated. But yeah, it was really cute. There was a lot of smut in it, so if you aren't a big smut person, maybe don't read this, but I loved it. And now we're going to move on to the Colleen Hoover. The Colleen Hoover. I had idiots with us, but we have November 9 and Reminders of Him, which were some of the books I read last year. But November 9 follows Fallon and Ben. Fallon is like an actress or something, and, well, like a former childhood actress, and Ben is an aspiring novelist. And basically they meet on November 9, which is 2 years after this incident that Fallon was in, and then they decide to meet each other every year on November 9th. And they have no communication between each November 9th, and, you know, like, so basically they have to catch each other up on what's happened in their lives. And I think they agree, like, after 5 years of doing this, then they can either be in a relationship or not. So yeah, there was a big plot twist at the end, and I was like, what? But, like, I think if I like actually, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a big plot twist. Like, if you actually read it, you're kind of like, what the fuck? But also I was like shocked that happened. Like, they kind of hinted it throughout the book, but I didn't expect it because I was in like La La Land, you know. Then Reminders of Him follows Kenna, who is she spent 5 years in prison pretty much, and before she went to prison, or while she was in prison, I can't remember, she had a daughter whose name, I have no idea what her name was. Anyway, she had this daughter, had a really weird name in my opinion because I've never heard this name before in my life, and I was like, how do I even pronounce that? Then she meets this guy, Ledger, who is actually her ex's, who is the father of her child's best friend, and he has a really close relationship with her daughter, and so she's trying to get closer to him, so that she can get closer to her daughter, but the grandparents of her daughter don't want her to see her daughter, so you know, like, there's this whole thing, and it's so cute. I love it. Anyway, we also have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I loved this so much. 5-star read. Read this year. Obviously it follows The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but from Evelyn's point of view because it's her book. Basically, in present time, Evelyn Hugo is telling her life story to Monique Grant, who is a reporter or something. She's a magazine reporter, and basically Evelyn's like, you can write my entire life story as a book, but you cannot release it until I'm dead. And so Monique is like, why me out of every single person on this like planet? Like, why would you want me to tell your story? And finally at the end you find out why. But yeah, you follow the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And if you've read any other book in this universe, so Daisy Jones and the Six, or Malibu Rising and Carrie Soto is Back, I'm pretty sure he's in every single one. I know he's definitely in Daisy Jones and the Six and Malibu Rising. Mick Ribber, I think it's his name. Malibu Rising, he is the parent, well, the dad of the characters from that. He shows up in Daisy Jones and the Six because he's a musician, and in this he's a husband of Evelyn Hugo. I don't know what he shows up as Carrie Soto is Back because I haven't read that yet, but just like a little universe kind of thing. We're going to go on to the next series that I have. I haven't read every book in the series, but at the rate it's going, I would recommend it, like the whole series. So we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. So I've read Killjoy, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and Good Girl Bad Blood. I have not read As Good as Dead yet, but so far 3 stars because it's a novella, like it's so short, I'm not going to rate it higher than 3 stars. 5-star, 5-star, obviously haven't read. It's just so good. Like, so in the first one you follow Pip, who's the main character of all of the books, and she is reinvestigating this murder that happened 5 years prior to the events of the book, and everyone assumes this one guy killed Andy Bell, who was the victim of the thing, and so she's reinvestigating it because she's like, I don't believe it, like it's not possible, he couldn't have done that because I knew him and he was so nice. So she investigates it, a lot of stuff happens, like she gets threatened and everything, and it's really interesting. I would recommend reading it. Like, this whole series, I love it. I love it so much. And finally, which the series isn't finished yet, but I have rated both of them for 5 stars at the moment, so I'm assuming I'll probably rate the third one and the final one of the series 5 stars as well. But that is the Knock 'Em Out series, so it's Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide from the Light so far, and I think the last book is Things We Left Behind or something. So basically, Things We Never Got Over follows Knox and Naomi. Naomi has this evil twin sister who basically robs her because, so basically her sister is like, hey, I'm in trouble, can you come and help me out? So Naomi drives to this town, Knock 'Em Out, tries to help her out, but then her sister robs her, takes her car, takes her phone, takes her wallet, takes everything, and leaves her with this 11-year-old girl who is Naomi's niece and her sister's daughter, you don't know. And then, so, because she's like, well, pitiful, I don't actually know if this happens before or after she finds out everything's stolen, but she meets Knox, who doesn't like her sister because, you know, evil twin, and so he's yelling at Naomi because, you know, he thinks it's her twin sister, and so he's yelling at her, telling her to get out of this town, you know, whatever, and then she's like, I'm not so-and-so, like, you know, and yeah, anyway, he realizes it's not her twin sister and ends up helping her out, helping her find a place to stay, helping her get back on her feet so she can leave the town, I think, is what his whole logic is. I can't remember, I read this like 2 months ago, but I loved every second of it. I like, okay, so I can't remember like the whole plot, but I can remember I love it, and I can remember like the basics, you know, like they fell in love, this whole plot. Anyway, loved that. And then Things We Hide from the Light follows Nash, who is Knox's brother, and it also follows Lena, who is Knox's best friend / ex. They were like kind of lovers in college or something, but then they have no feelings for each other now. Like, you can clearly tell that in both of the books. And it, I think, starts off as like enemies, kind of, like they don't like, well, like actually I think they like each other at the beginning, then they don't like each other, and then they love each other, you know, kind of goes like on this roller coaster, and I love this as well. Like but basically they're both following this thing that happened in the last book. Like they're both trying to investigate it, and Lena is investigating it for one reason and Nash is investigating it for another reason, because something personally happened to him in the last book. And so, you know, you're investigating that, and it's really interesting. I really loved it. I can't say much about the series without revealing and like, you know, spoiling it, and I don't want to spoil it. Those are all the books I would recommend reading to anyone who's like new to reading, even though I'm still technically new to reading. But yeah, I would recommend any of these ones so far. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys all next week for another one. Bye guys.